Hi. At this point, you should know how wheels are built and sized and fit and all that type of thing. But there's some additional details when it comes to actually, working with wheels. So there's a few things we're going to have a look at here. Okay, so in Canada, the biggest problem we have with wheels is probably corrosion. You have a lot of issues with road salt, a lot of high humidity, dampness, that type of thing, and it causes some real corrosion issues. It not only makes wheels ugly, it's a common cause of bead leaks, so tires losing air. The corrosion can also get into places so that the wheels don't mount properly, and that can bring up issues like the wheels coming loose or wobbling or brake pulsations, things like that. Okay. Usually this is a problem with aluminum wheels, but it can happen with steel wheels as well. So here we have an example. See this area right here? So in this case we have an aluminum wheel. It was noted that the tire was losing air, so we sprayed some, or the tech sprayed some soapy water around the bead area, and you can see it start to foam up. So we have leaks noted there, and there, and there. So there's a few spots that corrosion has got in, unseated the tire away from the rim, and allowed air to leak out. Also, note right here, this is the mounting flange area of the wheel. It's not uncommon that that area will get corroded as well. This is the area that will cause your issues with the wheel not mounting properly. So a couple things you can think of is if the corrosion was thick, chunky, you put the wheel back on there with that corrosion in place and tighten up the wheel nuts properly. As the car goes down the road, that corrosion can kind of crumble out, and that leaves the wheel loose. Also, even if it's trapped there, the wheel might not mount straight and wobble, gives you possibly brake pulsations, vibration going down the road. So a lot of things, and the root source of it all is corrosion. Okay, so here we have an example of the bead leak, a bead leak, and in this case it's located near a wheel weight. So you can see this is the outline of the weight that used to be on a wheel. It's not there. But you see that the wheel is corroded underneath where that weight was. And if you look on the inside, so you see that corrosion has crept into this whole area. That area would be where the bead of the tire is supposed to seat and seal. Right? There's the source of your leak. Usually you can clean this up, so you use a buffing wheel or something to remove all the corrosion, and you can repaint it if it's not too bad. Sometimes if it's fairly pitted, you're better off to paint it, let the paint cure, and then put bead sealer on top. The idea with painting it is to prevent further corrosion. The bead sealer, though, can help fill up little pits and things and make the tire seal better. If it's really bad, you may not be able to save it. You might have to replace the wheel. And in some cases, you can send the wheels out to get refinished. Okay. Oh, sorry. You do need to remember that the tire will have kind of the transfer of the corrosion onto the tire. So it's not just the wheel. You'll have to clean the tire off as well before you can remount it. Okay. So wheel nuts. So wheel nuts have some issues as well. A lot of the same sources, but in addition, if you use the wrong socket or to install a removal wheel nut, you can cause some damage to them. Usually, the ones that are the biggest problems are a regular steel wheel nut. They probably have like a light zinc coating on them, something like that, and then they have a stainless steel cap put over them. It's not uncommon that corrosion, crawls in underneath there and causes the stainless steel cap to swell up and split and change size. So, you have a mystery size wheel nut. Depending on how much corrosion is under the cap, it could swell up to, 2 or 3 sizes larger than it was supposed to be. Multiple manufacturers have had this problem. It's not limited to, one make and year or anything like that. It shows up regularly all over the place. So you want to consider that this problem, it makes it difficult to service in the shop because you don't know what tool you're going to have. It's just trial and error to see what size is going to fit this weirdly shaped wheel nut. But consider out on the road, it'd be a bigger problem for a customer if they had a flat somewhere in service. So here's some pictures. So little arrows here kind of pointing to some splits right? So you can see how corrosion could get in underneath there. Those are the stainless steel caps. They're split on these nuts. Now there is a nut underneath, but the manufacturer in this case is saying that the reason these things are split is because the technician that was servicing the vehicle was using a short socket. They're intended to have a deep socket with full engagement along the flanks, like for the full length of the nut. So in this case, the manufacturer says it's improper service caused this problem. Do be aware, though, that corrosion can get in there even if they are serviced properly. Okay, so here you look, these are the same nuts, and if you look up underneath in particular, like right here, you can see it would be easier for road salt and things to get in there and cause corrosion. And those are the actual nuts with the stainless steel caps removed. So you look at the amount of corrosion here. This is just surface imperfections. It's the original size. However, without that stainless steel cap, it's smaller than the intended size of it. So this was probably 19 millimeter, not usually for this style. And without that cap on it, it's probably like 18.5 millimeters. So now your socket doesn't fit properly. Conversely, over here, if you've got corrosion starting to build under that cap, the cap could be 19.5 millimeters. So depending on how much, what kind and how much damage you have, it becomes a bit of an issue. Again, consider the customer at the roadside. If they get a flat and they need to change this tire themselves, the vehicle only has one wheel wrench in it, and it's designed to fit the original size wheel nut. So if they've got something odd on there, they might be in a place where they can't change a tire to repair a flat. So here's an example of one, and as the question says here, does this look like it came off easily? And the answer would be no. That was a struggle. So consider if you had to rotate tires on a vehicle where you had 20 like this, you could spend way too long trying to get them all off, and there's virtually no way you're going to reuse these. So you've got to replace them. If you have a choice, recommend replacing them. Anytime you take them off and they start to look a little weird and the tools aren't fitting properly, recommend replacement. Again, thinking of the customer, 6 months from now, if they get a flat tire on the road, they may not be able to change it. Okay, so how do we prevent this? We keep wheels clean, particularly in the winter, so wash things down, try and keep the road salt from building up in there. Water displacing spray like WD-40 might be beneficial to try and keep moisture out. Avoid damage to the paint or clear coat, and use the correct tools and service procedures. They kind of go together. So, if you're changing a tire or removing and replacing a wheel, always do things correctly and pay attention to the coating on the wheel, because it is a corrosion preventer. Touch up damaged paint in the bead area and or use bead sealer. So if you're servicing a wheel and then there's a little scratch in the clear coat or something, if you can touch it up, that'll prevent corrosion from growing. A winter set of steel wheels and snow tires can be installed to replace a summer set of aluminum wheels and sportier tires. It's commonly done, so a vehicle might have 2 sets of wheels. The inexpensive steel wheels, they're usually available for most applications, with the intent of using them with snow tires. The steel wheels are a little less prone to having corrosion problems. They don't look as good, but they perform very well with a set of snow tires on in the winter. And recommend replacing any wheel nuts that start to swell. They may not come off next time, and they may not be serviceable at the roadside. Okay, so a note of caution. Although inexpensive steel wheels are frequently used in the winter, inexpensive replacement wheel nuts may not be the best choice. Now, some cheap wheel nuts are fine, and others will cause you no end of grief. I have no way of telling which ones you're going to end up with in your hands. So poor anti-corrosive plating might rust quite soon. So you get some of these, they look all nice and shiny, you put them on the vehicle, in a matter of a couple weeks later, they're looking all rusty and crummy. So very often you don't get the lifespan you would expect out of them. Occasionally the plating will gall on the wheel stud threads and cause the nut to jam on the wheel stud. And this can happen even taking one of them off to, to rotate a tire or something. You try and take a wheel nut off, it comes halfway off, jams up. The plating has come off the inside of the nut and jammed up between the threads. Basically, your wheel nut and your stud end up welded together, and there's no way to get it off. You end up breaking off a wheel stud or something. So I just kind of a little note of caution, try to use quality parts whenever you're working with anything, and sometimes the cheap stuff can come back to bite you. Okay, that's it. I hope you learned a little bit, and I'll see you in class.